You say my name like I have never heard. Greedy, crazy, love isn't for us. We created something phenomenal.
And the number one bass line from Future Nostalgia is... Hi, it's Tom. Today I'm going to play through every bass line from Dua Lipa's album Future Nostalgia. It's a great album. It has some great pop tracks on there and also some really good bass lines. I'm also going to rank the bass lines as well, just based on what I think's kind of fun to play. So put in the comments what your favorite bass line is to play from the album. So today I'm going to run through 10 bass lines. There are 11 tracks on the album, but the last one doesn't really have a bass line, so I'm doing 10. Okay, so in number 10, I have Future Nostalgia. The title track is played on a synth. It's just kind of sticking to the root notes, and then we also have slide in between to kind of make it a little bit more interesting. And we also have that little staccato run leading into the verse as well. So for number 9, I have Physical. Great track. It has that Moog synth feel about it. Which is reminiscent of Donna Summer, I Feel Love, and other disco tracks. What's interesting about this bass line is we have that descending run throughout of the F, E, D, and back to the E. But against the root notes, they take on different qualities. So there's that tension at the start where from that A to that F, that's an augmented fifth, so it has a bit more sense of tension there. So that's very interesting how it kind of changes the relationship between the different root notes there. And to get a more moogy synth feel, I put a bit of chorus on the bass and also added delay as well. All right, so here is that one. And number 8, I have Cool. I love this track. I guess the bass line isn't higher because it's not as prominent in the chorus. It's fantastic, but the bass line is not so prominent in the other parts of the track. And in the chorus, the bass line is really cool. Haha. The way it descends down and when it changes into the root notes, it kind of adds that extra thuddiness and an extra sense of resolution. And you can't kind of help but do that bass face when you're doing those descending slides down. It's also a really cool fill here, which I keep saying cool, which I'm playing with slap. Yeah, I love that track. Yeah, number 7, Good in Bed. It has that Lily Allen kind of bounce to it. Lyrically, it has that kind of swagger about it. Yeah, it's a cool song. In the bass line, it has that chromatic run from the G to the C. Pretty standard, sticking to the root notes. Yeah, it's a fun track. Yeah, just not my favorite, but it's still good. All right, so here's the bass line played through.
Yeah, let's get to the point here. You love to disappoint me, don't ya? You tell me what I want, but ain't no follow through. You don't follow through, no. But if you only knew me, the way you know my body, baby.
So yeah, here we have Pretty Please. Yeah, there's kind of there's a strong relationship here between the rhythm of the track and also this bass line. It sounds great as well. I think when you listen to it, even on not that expensive speakers, it still sounds good. It repeats pretty much throughout. The kind of thing which is a bit interesting is that so after 8 bars of the bum 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 bum, yeah, we have a little bit of production in that last bar before it transitions into the next verse or the next chorus. And I find that interesting because otherwise it would just be the same thing over and over again. So just that little bit of variation kind of makes it a little bit more interesting, kind of, I guess, draws the audience in, or the listener in, a little bit more.
Pretty please, I need your hands on me. Sweet relief. Pretty.
So this is a good point to ask that if you do want more content like this, do consider subscribing. So Levitating, yeah, this is a really good track. And I think that when you look at the bass line, just by looking at it, well, the standard bass line, doesn't look that interesting. But actually listen to the track, there's lots of little subtle variations and lots of little fills, which I think makes it a more fun bass line to play than just by looking at it. The most challenging thing technically to play, a little semi-quaver run before we go back into that first beat. And number 4, I have Hallucinate, and it's a little bit challenging technically because you have to kind of get from these low notes up to the high notes. But what you can do is if you play it with your... You can play it with your thumb and use your index to play the high notes, or we could do it in a more traditional fingerstyle way. For number 3, I have Love Again. I'm a big fan of 80s nostalgia and 1980s music, and this song just reminded me a lot of that. And I like how the bass line, well, I love the melody of the track overall, but also how the bass line ties into the part which is sung. So everything feels very cohesive in the song. Technically, there's not much really to say about it. There's some little dead notes, but otherwise it pretty much stays the same throughout. And yeah, I just think it's really fun to play because I love the song. So I mentioned I'm a fan of 1980s nostalgia. This track is similar enough to Need You Tonight by INXS that the writers of Need You Tonight have been given a credit on the track. It is a tricky bass line to play though because it is quite fast. There's this fast semi-quaver part which is quite a workout for these 2 fingers here.
You say my name like I have never heard before. I'm indecisive, but this time I know for sure. I hope I'm not the only one that feels it all. Are you falling?
And the number one bass line from Future Nostalgia is...
Crazy, thinking about the way I was. Did the heartbreak change me, baby? But look at where I ended up.
Well, obviously it's Don't Start Now. I mean, what a track. The track's been around for 7 or 8 months and it still sounds really fresh, even though it's just been on the radio for like forever. And the bass line sounds like a real bass line. You know, there's variations and there's pops in there and there's fills. It's just really, really great. So it just, the bass line plus the track just make it just amazing to play. So to get the kind of buzzy sound on the track, you can play closer to the bridge.
Crazy, thinking about the way I was. Did the heartbreak change me, baby? But look at where I ended up.
All right, so what did you think of the list? Obviously, as I said before, your opinion may vary from mine. I'm sure it does vary from mine. So do put in the comments what your favorite bass line is. All right, that's it.